here's how being too rigid with definitions closes people's minds, okay? We've been talking about the homonymy in natural language, right? When I talk about bachelors being unmarried, it might be true in the more typical sense, perhaps given in a basic English dictionary. But if I'm talking about bachelors as contestants or former contestants on The Bachelor, not true, right? Natural languages have homonymy that can get in the way of really getting at truth, in a way. Aristotle talks about how we need to take that homonymy, respect it, but then give the different senses, right? We need to turn the natural language a little bit into a term of art. Let me give you an example. The best examples are when there's near synonyms. So let's take, I'm a philosophy professor, I teach about morality and ethics a lot. Let's talk about moral versus ethical. Near synonyms, right? You might think, wait, these are synonyms. I think they're synonyms, right? But what can happen? Has anyone ever built a distinction between the ethical and the moral to highlight some truth to you? I'm sure they have. People do it in lots of different ways, right? It could be, right, that by moral we mean something about an inner disposition. By ethical we mean something about following the standards imposed on you from outside. There's one distinction we could make. By moral we might mean what you actually do, what you think is the right thing to do. And by ethical, we could mean what's actually the right thing to do. Right? Moral could be something more descriptive. Ethical could be something more objective. There's lots of ways we can take these near synonyms and put a distinction on the world that highlights some important facet of reality for us. Lots of ways we can do it. What's the true definition of moral? What are we asking? Are we asking how it's usually used in the English language? Are we looking for all the different senses, like Aristotle might do? We say moral in many different ways. Let's look at this way. Let's look at that way. And then let's be real careful about what's distinct about them. And then let's look at this one sense. Now, here's the thing. People will make these distinctions lots of different ways. People will put language on top of reality to highlight different features of reality in lots of different ways and come up with truths. Come up with wisdom. When people insist, and you've seen this. We see this in cults. We see this in non-culty religious groups. We see this in businesses. We see this in ideologies. We see this in feminism. We see this in good ideologies. We see this in bad ideologies as well, right? We see this everywhere. People will be trained to hear a word and think of a precise definition. Do you ever see The World's End, the Edgar Wright movie with Simon Pegg and Nick Frost? Do you know what a robot is? Robot means slave. I'm not a slave. Do you feel like a... Right. So, well, you know what the definition of crazy is. Doing the same thing and expecting different results. Okay, so what's really important, what's really mind-opening, what's really freeing in a lot of ways, is to be able to accept all the distinctions for what they are. Is to be able to try to see reality through this language and through that language. Did you see my learn 2 times video? Right? I mean, it's very basic, right? I don't want us to get confused in thinking that the sentences are the truths. The language reveals aspects of reality and covers up others. The language reveals aspects of reality and distorts others. Being able to see reality, to think about reality through lots of different languages. Not to say that you don't have your own special, right? The language of... I have a couple kind of natural languages for me, right? That fall into place for me real nicely. The language of Jesus in the Gospels, the Sermon on the Mount. I mean, there's a lot of stuff. This resonates deeply with me because of my upbringing. There's been a lot of transformations that I've needed to make in this, but, that stuff feels real natural to me. The language of early modern philosophy, of 17th century metaphysics, sounds real natural to me. The language of skepticism feels real natural to me, right? Don't get confused in thinking that the tool for perceiving reality is the reality. Don't get confused into thinking that the language describing the reality is the reality. Real soon, I'm going to go record it right now, actually. I'm going to talk about divine properties. Ooh, it's a weird discussion. But, if we're trying to understand reality, maybe if we want to think about what's beyond this. Yeah, I need to talk about sensation first. Let's talk about sensation. But how to have knowledge of the divine, if it's even possible, what that consists of. That's a real interesting topic, one that I've spent a lot of time thinking about. Anyway, love y'all. It's good to see you.